Welcome to Does It Make a Sound, the podcast where we ask if an indie band pours their heart and soul into making a record, but nobody's around to hear it, does it make a sound? I'm your host, Dustin Owens, and the other woodchucks are joining me again here today. To chuck a little wood, we've got my Fall Down Trees bandmates, Porkchop Branch and Nolin McAlister.
Hello.
How you doing, Nolin?
Doing great.
All right, glad to hear you guys. You sound good coming through the microphone. A little bit later in the episode, we're going to have a couple of other special guests joining us too. Our own backing singers, the Saplings, Emmylou Reed and Towns McCoy. So stick around for that. In this first season of Does It Make a Sound, we're going through our debut album, Night Terrors, and it's one song per episode, and this is episode 4, The Modern Prometheus. Go listen to Night Terrors on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, Tidal, all the streaming services. It's out there. It's available. We do think that the show's probably going to be more interesting if you listen to the album all the way through first. So listen to the album all the way through and then listen to it again after each episode all the way through. That's really going to help us with our plays, so very much appreciated. If you haven't listened to the other episodes of this podcast and season 1, we definitely recommend starting with episode 1, Hand of God. It's all a story, and once again, it's one song per episode, so why not start at the beginning of the album? Make sure you like and subscribe to Does It Make a Sound? And it's on all of the podcasting platforms. And please give us a review if you like what you hear. That really helps us with the algorithms, makes other folks want to listen to it, even if they don't know who we are. I think we're getting a really good listener base from our fans that already exist, as well as a few other folks that are friends of ours that have kind of come over and listened and hopefully have now listened to the album and like it. But we would also love to be able to reach out beyond our circle into new circles and reach new audiences, and those reviews really help with that, and sharing it on your own social media pages really helps with that too, so we'd appreciate it. For more information about this podcast, about the band, make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all of those places too. If you've got feedback for us about the shows, you can message us on the socials. You can even email us at falldowntrees@gmail.com. This show, just like our music, is still a work in progress. And with that being said, we welcome any constructive feedback, and you can also tell us how much you hate it if that's how you feel about it. I'll read it and use that to fuel the rest of my creative endeavors. We are proud partners of Guttersville Records, independent record label, and lots of good music coming out there too. We've got a new album out from Chroma Combs, 5-Year Fever Dream. It's available now everywhere, as well as a really cool music video that I was the cameraman for, that you can find on YouTube for the song 33, I think is the name of the tune. And a new album coming up in a couple of weeks from Cowlick Moon. I make a special guest appearance, playing a little harmonica and some backing vocals on that one too. But even if I wasn't on there, I'd recommend it. The songs are really great, and I'm really excited for it to land. So lots of good stuff coming from Guttersville, and you can find the record label on all the platforms and social medias and all that too. Please go find us, and guttersvillerecords.com. We got a new playlist we're working on for Spotify. Decided Nolin is helping us archive this. We're going, as we go through the episode, all of the songs that we're like mentioning that aren't us and that we can't actually play on the podcast without getting kicked off for royalty infringement, we're putting on podcasts. So if we mention somebody and you're like, who are you talking about? But I don't even know what that is. Just go find the Does It Make a Sound playlist on Spotify. It's linked to all of our pages, socials, and everywhere too. And you can hear all of the music that we discuss while we're discussing our own tunes. And for any of the things that we talk about during the show, there are going to be links in the show notes. So hop down there and you can find those links. But for this episode, we're talking about the modern Prometheus, or should I say the modern day Prometheus, or maybe even Umbrella.
Yeah.
This is one of those songs that has changed a lot. This is maybe the only example of a song, at least that I can think of, that we completely rewrote all of the lyrics and even part of the melody and kept the music exactly the same. So it's really 2 songs instead of just one song over time, but a wholesale rewrite of the tune. Our goal for this show was to make each episode an hour long. We have failed miserably at that up to this point, and this episode is not going to be any better. I think now the real fight is like keeping the episodes under 2 hours. This is probably going to be the longest episode. There's a lot to talk about here. You never want to hear from your audience that they really wish they could hear less of you. Like, that's not feedback that you really want to get. I do understand, like, long episodes can be difficult to get through and difficult to process. You don't have to do it in one sitting. You can break it up. You've got 2 weeks between now and the next episode drop. Listen to 15 to 30 minutes at a time. Take it and process it in those small chunks. But we really feel like it's important for us to get all of this out there, so we're not gonna hold back on the length. All right, so this is also one of the first songs that Porkchop and I wrote together. I remember we wrote it on the porch back at my old house, and it must have been right after Emmylou was born. So my best guess is sometime like 2013 to 2015. Yeah. Somewhere around in there. I think that I had the music, so I had the riff and everything already, and I had an idea that I wanted to write a song that reminded me of the show Cheers, if I remember correctly. This sort of welcoming idea.
Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name.
But we couldn't just steal that, so we had to come up with our own version of it, right? I don't know where the umbrella came from, do you?
Well, the song mentions about coming in out of the rain. With the original, I believe, at least when we were writing it, we were talking about coming in out of the rain and putting your umbrella in the corner. That was the idea.
That makes sense. I didn't think about that. But you come in out of the rain, but when you refresh yourself.
Yes.
But when you leave, don't forget your umbrella.
Yeah.
That's pretty solid. Okay, so let's do something a little different here. I'm actually going to play this demo all the way through. Instead of just playing a clip of it, because the entire song and the entire lyrics and everything are completely different. So I do think it's worthwhile playing this one all the way through from beginning to end and letting everybody hear how different it was, but also, the quality of the first write. I do think it kind of shows like good enough isn't good enough. That principle that we've talked about over the course of this episode, I think it really kind of leans into that. So let's go ahead and do that. This is the full demo. I have no idea when this was recorded. Sometime after I got voice memos on my phone, which would have been much later than 2015 if I had to guess. But anyway, this is the first version that I could find of the song Umbrella with all the lyrics and everything in its entirety.
Friendly skies forevermore. You're welcome to come in and play. Don't forget your umbrella by the door. When the rain starts pouring in on friendly skies, hold your head up high, step inside. When the wind starts pushing in, boy, to knock you down, try to stand your ground. Rain may come and wash away blessings that could lay in store. You're welcome to come in and play. Don't forget your umbrella by the door. Grab a cup of courage and stretch yourself out. by the fire. Don't be discouraged by the goings on of cheats and liars. Well, it's bad news for folks like me and you. No matter who should take the blame, no matter who, what, why, or for, step inside out of the rain. Don't forget your umbrella by the door. We've all seen our share of storms, man, they come and go. And just so you know, they always go. If you need a friendly face or a helping hand, come see us again. Sunshine chase the clouds away, friendly skies forevermore. We understand if you can't stay, don't forget your umbrella by the door.
It's pretty wild, man. It's pretty wild to hear that song again in that context. It's definitely not my usual thing. Like, it's definitely not a type of song. And at that point, it was like, I've never written a song like this before, right? But now we're 10 years down the road from that, and I haven't written another song like this after either, right? Like, it's still very unique, like, musically in the type of thing that I do. And this version's also really unique lyrically. It's almost poppy. Like, there's not... It's gonna sound like I'm being mean, and I don't mean to be mean, but there's not as much like weirdness or depth there as I usually try to achieve in a song. It was very much like I wanted a nice, light, uplifting tune, which is weird. I don't write songs like that ever, and apparently, we tried to at this point in time. I don't remember what of that was yours and what of that was mine or anything like that as far as the lyrical aspects of it. There's some great turns of phrase in there and like interior rhymes and stuff that I do really like. I don't know where the music came from. I don't know why. Thinking back, I was playing around with that song Bitch by the Rolling Stones, and it's got that, like, it's a C bar chord and it moves up and down the neck of the guitar, and it's kind of got that, and I think maybe like I was playing with that and kind of came up with something different. But the way that song, the chords move in that song is definitely different than the way that I would usually write. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Elvis Costello. Like, it's sort of got that sort of vibe. Nate, when I played it for him from Guttersville Records, from Chroma Combs, he said it reminded him of like some Paul Simon stuff. I think that might be some of the sort of like reggae that's maybe coming through in it a little bit, and the focus on the backbeat. I think it's interesting that bridge was already there too.
Yeah.
And we'll talk a little bit more about how it disappeared for a while, but it was there. It just had lyrics. Like, it wasn't a sax solo musical, piece. I think that we tried several times to actually keep the lyrics in there. There's a line there in that bridge, grab a cup of courage and stretch yourself out by the fire. Don't be discouraged by the goings on of cheats and liars. I think the first part of that was yours, Chop, the cup of courage.
Yeah, I think it was.
And the goings on of cheats and liars was my half of that. I really love that line. It didn't make it back in there, and I could tell as I listened to all of the recordings of this and the rewrites that I kept trying to get the cup of courage part in particular in there. I think this would have been around the time my job at the first radio station that I worked at was kind of going down the drain. We got bought out by a new owner who very much was a wealthy man and an attorney and felt like he could do whatever he wanted to, regardless of the law and regardless of what people wanted to listen to. He bought the plane and he was going to fly it, is what he was.
It was his toy.
Yeah, that's right. Regardless of the fact that it was the rest of our jobs. That was a really stressful time in my life. I had a new baby at home. I don't like all the backstabbing and all of that. I don't fit good in those environments. I want a job where I can just like work and we all work together and try to like make the business that we work for a better place. When it comes to all that inter-office politics, I'm not cut out for it. And so maybe that's why. Maybe it was just like I wanted a song that made me feel better. I wanted a place where I could leave my umbrella by the door, that sort of thing. This would have been an early song we played when we formed Dustin Owens and the First Amendment, the band, as well, when we added Matt Myers in on the drums. That kind of happened on the heels of me and you starting to play together and starting to write songs together and stuff. So I think it would have been right around the same time, 2014, maybe something like that. Speaking of drums, the rhythm of this song is different than anything that we were playing at the time, or really anything that any of the drummers that we played with ever played. And I think that was kind of like, it was always a struggle for the drummers to pick up on this song, right? And what the rest of us are doing is almost exactly the same. The sax is doing it, the bass is doing it, the guitars are doing it, and then the drums are like, what in the hell are we supposed to do with this? Like, how are we supposed to fill this in? I mean, I think that continued really even into the recording process. We didn't know what we were going to do with the rhythm of the song. Different parts are radically different too, and the tempo change in the bridge. I do have the advantage, like, it makes sense to me because I wrote the song. So when I come in, oftentimes it doesn't like dawn on me why things are as hard as they are for other people because they don't have a reference point. Like Matt didn't know what the drums were supposed to sound like on this song because I didn't know either.
It's
right?
completely natural to you where you're going to come in.
Now, this kind of music, too, like this sort of reggae ska thing, was different for all of us, but it did kind of come natural for Nolin. Nolin had a background in ska playing with Way Past Midnight. And I don't know if we've mentioned them in the show yet.
I'm not sure.
Point.
I don't think so.
But they definitely deserve mention, especially, talking about music in our area, kind of back before this in the early days when all of the Guttersville bands, we were all buddies and stuff. Way Past Midnight was one of the biggest bands in town, and there were lots of real late nights up there at the Den where we'd come see you guys play, man. And y'all would pack that place to the gills, and people would be dancing at every tune.
Because everybody but me in the band worked service, like, waiters, dishwashers, they all worked in restaurants, and nobody could come to the shows until after work. And so that was the only place that let us play late.
And the Den, especially, like, they love that midnight to 3 a.m. crowd. Really miss Justin, man. Justin was such a cool guy and left us early and tragically, but Justin owned the Den and was real good to us local musicians and stuff, too.
He was great. He let us practice there and keep all of our equipment, He'd come and lock, let us practice there as long as we wanted.
Yeah, there was one night where I thanked him so much I'd had a little too much to drink, and he let me sleep it off on the couch. And I woke up at like 9 o'clock in the morning, and still in the bar, and went out, got in the car, and went home. And the next night, I was like, Justin, man, I really appreciate you letting me like sleep over here. And he was like, what? You were in the bar when we locked up? I had no idea. Those were wild times, though, man. I also gave you a real tasty bridge to jam over the top of, man. That's you seem to really like dig into that chord progression.
Oh yeah.
All right, so I got a live version of this from a long time ago from the Merck Mountain Music Festival in 2015.
Wow.
So we'll give a couple more shout outs here. Thanks to Sheila and Mark for having us up there and being such nice hosts. And Mike Carroll was running the sound for this show and got us a nice, clean soundboard recording, which I don't know that we really had it. I mean, we still struggle getting nice, clean live recordings. But this is about as good of a live recording as I could imagine. So here's a little clip from Merck Mountain in 2015. Dustin Owens and the First Amendment.
Rain may come and wash away blessings that could lay in store. You're welcome to come in and play. Don't forget your umbrella by the door.
I let that one go a little bit longer than I usually do. But man, Nolan's freaking smoking that saxophone, and Matt like handled that tempo change like nobody's business. That was like as smooth as hell. Like we don't even even on the recording we did for the album. Hey, Arlo's saying hey to everybody. I don't know if they can hear him. Like there's like the music stops and then we build into the slow spot to kind of reset ourselves for a different tempo, but we just dropped into it right there. I thought that was pretty cool. I have a kind of a funny story I remember from that Merc Mountain festival. So I used to drive this van. I'm sure you guys remember.
Yes.
It was a big white Ford Econoline work van. All the windows, like it didn't have windows in the back at all. Like they were all covered up with metal. And there was a cage in the back and like some shelving and stuff. And it got a very unsavory nickname.
Yeah.
Because of the way that it looked, and everybody was always making free candy jokes and all this stuff about my van. Now I will say that van had several positive benefits to it. First of all, it only went like 55 and you couldn't see out of it, so I started driving like a grandpa, changing lanes and always using my turn signal and going very slowly. So it really taught me how to drive. There were a lot of nights where I should not drive, that I pulled out the cot in the back and just slept it off in the back of the van. That was really fantastic too. And so I started a campaign to rebrand the van from the nasty names that it was given by other people. We started calling it the consensual sex van. And I created a Facebook page for it. It was a whole thing. I started getting a lot of weird messages from people overseas about it, and I finally shut it down because I was afraid I was going to get on a FBI watch list. And so anyway, I drove this Ford Econoline van up to the top of Merc Mountain. And Merc Mountain is a mountain in certain senses of the word. Like, it is a thing that's higher than all of the surrounding land around it. But it's also very muddy and very mucky. And I'm in a two-wheel drive work van loaded down with band gear. And so we got it up to the top, and I got it stuck. And so when I got ready to leave, I couldn't like get it turned around or anything to get pointed down the hill. I was just spinning tires and throwing mud all over, red clay all over the side of it. And so I got out, and I like walked up to, I like was walking up. I was like, I got to get somebody to help me out here. Now we're in, I guess that's Pickens County, South Carolina. 6 Mile, yeah. So we're in 6 Mile, South Carolina. If you're from around here, you understand. But you should just know, if you're not from around here, that 6 Mile is kind of at the base of the mountains. It's a very rural South Carolina area, right? And so I get out of the van and I start walking up, and I see this guy walking towards me. And he's got like the trucker hat on, and it's frazzled around the edges, and the jeans that are pretty frazzled, and he's got his like Rocky cowboy style work boots on, you know? And I was like, hey man, is there any chance you drive a truck and can help me tow this van? And it was like 18 dudes that looked just like him were like swarmed me like mosquitoes, like, we can do it, please let us tow your van. And so we got correct pretty quick. But man, that was a really fun gig. All right. So anyway, back to the topic at hand.
You wouldn't happen to have a F-250, would you?
That's right. A truck way too big for anything that you have any use for.
Yeah, it's like those cartoons where the eyeballs pop out in the middle of the night.
Ooga.
Yeah, like the emoji with the eyeballs.
All right. So anyway, that song, it was hard to play. It was hard to learn for new members. Like as we went through and tried to add new people to the band, I was always kind of back and forth on the lyrics. Like sometimes I would like them, and sometimes I wouldn't be so happy about it. And so it really didn't appear a lot through the years. We played it with Matt some, but if we were like playing a gig with a different person filling in, we were definitely not going to pull it out for that. Definitely not something we were going to do in any band that didn't have a drummer. In September of 2019, Porkchop and I started rewriting the song. I think this would have been September 2019 would have been just after Matt moved away and the First Amendment dissolved.
Yeah.
Is just, I don't know. I don't have all this written down anywhere, but in my head, that seems about right. And would make sense why we would start rewriting a song that we already had. So I sent this next thing I'm going to play here. I sent this voice note to Porkchop it was like ideas for rewriting the song. The full note is 11 minutes long. And a lot of it is just me like playing the music of the song and then just like singing nonsense words over the top of it, like try to find the melody or something. Here at the beginning, the part that I'm not going to play the whole 11 minutes, but here at the part I'm going to play, these are like instructions for Porkchop. I thought it was kind of interesting. This note that this song would be hard for me and Porkchop to co-write remotely. Like when we did this the first time, we were sitting next to each other on the porch. This one, like, we're trying to share stuff back and forth with each other over the phone, you know? But the problem is Porkchop can't play this song. Like, this is a very, like, there's a lot going on guitar, and even if I could, you can play the bass line.
Right.
You could probably figure out the chords, but there's no way you could, like, sing it and write over the top of it while you were doing it. So a lot of this is me just, like, giving Porkchop something in his head that he can start trying to write lyrics to. So anyway, this is from September of 2019, Umbrella Song Ideas.
All right, so this is where I'm at. We got a riff on the song. I want to scrap the umbrella concept and come up with something fresh. I feel like the riff and the music is really solid, but the lyrics are bland. So maybe we can do something with a little more bite to it. Think like Elvis Costello or The Clash with their sort of reggae style. But anyway, so the riff, just in general. So, I kind of came up with a chorus thing, and I don't know, I'm not stuck on this, but the idea going through my head is like, you can't give it away. You can't give it away for free. I don't know, maybe we could come up with something better, more profound there, but what was bouncing through my head, like music oriented, like, you know, I work so hard on this thing, but I can't give it away for free. That sort of idea, or maybe it's like even sex. You know, like when you're younger and, you know, you try everything, but you can't give it away. You can't give it away for free. So in my head, it could go something like this. Can't give it away. Can't give it away for free. Can't give it away. Can't give it away for free.
All right. I don't know why my brain does what my brain does sometimes. But that's pretty funny.
We should definitely write that song, though. Like, with that idea.
Well, I'm really glad we didn't stick with it in this instance. No. Honestly, I really don't think that what I was doing right there is any better than the umbrella concept. Also, there's a thing, like, I hear like it's almost like I'm putting an accent on my voice. Give it away, like it's like I'm trying to sing like a reggae singer. It's really embarrassing.
A lot of appropriation there.
There is, yeah. Like it makes me really uncomfortable to hear that. That was 6 years ago when appropriation was okay, I guess.
It was just ending.
It was just
ending when it was okay.
I'm always late to the party when it comes to figuring stuff out like that. All right, so somewhere between September and October of 2019, the idea to write about Mary Shelley's Frankenstein happened.
Yeah.
I don't know, like...
I know why. I remember why we started talking about it, because it was heading toward Halloween.
Makes sense.
And we started talking about books we had read, and I said every October, just about every October since I was in high school, I have read... I don't read as much as I used to, but I will, whatever I'm doing, I make time to read Frankenstein. It's an easy read, and I read it and try to get it finished before Halloween.
Yeah.
And I'm not a big Halloween guy, but that's one of the most...
It like puts you in the mood.
Macabre and, and also very thoughtful.
God, I love that book.
So
man.
I think it's hard to say what's my favorite, but it's in the top three.
Absolutely. I'd put it there for me too.
And we started talking about it, and we realized we had never talked about it. And like, man, we both like this book. And then you're like, hey, maybe we should just take the umbrella idea, that song, and let's write about Frankenstein. So, and you said, but not, and I remember, I don't remember everything, but I remember specifically saying we can't use the word Frankenstein because that's the doctor, but it's the modern Prometheus.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, how are you going to get Frankenstein into the? You can't get those words into the thing. So do you? So we wanted to go with Modern Prometheus. Had I written the other Prometheus song yet already?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
So we have two Prometheus songs. I would imagine we're the only band out there that has two songs with Prometheus in the title.
Yeah, you have the original Prometheus, the original recipe,
and then the modern
Prometheus. Yeah,
it's perfect. It really works out. I think you'll probably end up hearing the original Prometheus in an album about two more albums down the road once we figure out how to play it. Never quite pulled that off. So I don't know, like the chorus, we're all just DNA. I feel like that was the thing that just sort of rolled into me, just trying to sing something with the chorus of that song. It's really hard when you have something that busy to come up with a melody that fits it, and the way that the words come in, they don't match the melody, right? Like I didn't want to sing da 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 because that's what everything else was doing. So I kind of created like a counterpoint. I'm going to give myself, and I know people out there that listen to this are like, this whole podcast is you just patting yourself on the back. And that's pretty true. But I'm going to give myself a big pat on the back because this song includes the words nucleotides and molecular. I don't know how many songs say nucleotides and molecular, but that work them into such a catchy and upbeat thing. I mean, I think that's a pretty good turn of phrase, and I don't want to take anything away from you, Chop, but I'm pretty sure that was me.
Oh yeah, that whole chorus was you.
We're all just DNA.
I remember, if you may have some notes on this, but it seems like that chorus came after we had already started working on the verses.
I didn't have anything on that. I was trying to figure it out based on the recordings that I had, but
I remember you started sending words for the verse through email, and I would say, so I actually like a nerd pulled the book out and would go to I think you were doing the same thing to make sure we had the story exactly right.
Absolutely.
Like, no, we're not giving any license of this. This needs to be direct. And we had talked about how the last verse was going to be
okay. We will get to that part.
I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I think you had started working on that almost from the beginning. Like that's the idea of what we're going to do with the last verse.
Yeah.
But we had all these words going, and I would say, man, you did the majority of the work, and I would say, hey, put this here, change this. I think this.
There were some really important, like creature was one of the things that we worked in there. I think I might have used monster first.
Yeah.
And like little bits like that, changing them around.
But I remember we worked on it for several weeks. It seemed.
No, we worked on it for almost a year. All right, so we're gonna get to that part.
So it's getting condensed in my mind.
All right, so here's another thing. I'm a big fan of Sam Harris's podcast, Making Sense. I don't know if you guys have ever listened to it. I've liked Sam Harris for a really long time. He kind of started out in what it was like the new atheist movement or whatever with Richard Dawkins and like some of those guys.
Christopher Hitchens and all those
Christopher
guys.
Hitchens. They were all buddies. His podcast is really good. It's really thoughtful, like long form interviews and stuff like that. one of the things around this point in time that he was very focused on and talked a lot about, I think he put out a book about it, was free will. And there's this idea that free will doesn't exist. And this is his part of his philosophy. But the idea is like it's all our genetics. Like it's how we're built and how we're raised, things that decisions that we're not making. The environment either puts it on us or we're created this way genetically that cause us to make the decisions. So if, we see $100 bill, we see somebody drop $100 bill. The morally righteous person is going to say, hey, you just dropped that $100 bill, and the degenerate is going to try to pick it up and stick it in their pocket, right? Like there's this idea, and then one makes a person bad and one makes a person good. But these are choices that we're all making, right? Whereas what he's saying is that it's your genetics and your environment that cause you to make that decision. And so you don't actually have the free will yourself. And I don't know that I fully buy into any of that. It makes sense to me on a level, but I also very much feel like we can change ourselves through discipline and make ourselves better people, which of course maybe it's our genetics and our environment that gives us the ability to do that. So we kind of get caught in this, what do they call the snake that, Ouroboros, the snake that eats its tail?
Yeah.
But anyway, that's a whole thing, but I find it fascinating. Like I really find it fascinating to think about, and that was a big part of this too, like in that chorus. Like this is kind of where I'm going, we're all just DNA, nucleotides along for the ride with a molecular fate, nature and nurture, it's one and the same. So anyway, all right, so next up, this is going to be from October of 2019. So this is kind of, the last one was called Umbrella Song Ideas. This next one is called Working on Modern Prometheus. So this is like the first recordings I have after we've changed our approach, and we're obviously like writing the song with a different perspective.
Paused outside the walls and addressed the dark, afraid to stay but terrified to part. How can you leave? How can you grieve your maker's arms on a nihilistic quest to do no harm when you're just DNA? Nucleotides along for the ride of molecular fate. Nature and nurture, one and the same DNA.
So this was obviously one of those things where I didn't start with a line, or I didn't start with a lyric, or it started with an idea. Right, because those lyrics, I'm trying to get the same point across that we finally got across, but they're almost completely different. It was weird to me to listen back and hear that, because I think those opening lines of this song are one of my favorite opening lines that I've ever written, and I feel like I say that a lot, but this is like this. Usually a song has one, you're lucky if you get more than one thing in there where you're just like, that's really good, and it holds the rest of the song up, right? Like one thing that seems exceptional. This one's got the DNA chorus, which I think is great, but it's also got this opening line: the creature stood outside of the walls and addressed the dark, are we menagerie for the stars? I think that's really, really good. It didn't exist here yet, right?
No.
And it says the creature paused outside the walls. I think I got a little too rhyme happy the first go around, so I'm actually glad I took that inside rhyme out of it down the road. But what you were talking about just a minute ago, the structures are already there. So the first verse was going to be from the perspective of the creature, and the second verse was going to be from the perspective of the maker, Dr. Frankenstein, right? And so we kind of knew that that's how we wanted to set up those first two verses right off the bat, and we're using this idea of DNA as a sort of a way to tie them together, right? Like they're both having the same thoughts, but from a completely different perspective, which is very much what this song's about. Now, at this point, after the two verses and the choruses, we went to the bridge. But as we're rewriting here, the bridge became completely lyrical. So we got rid of the musical part of the bridge and made it completely lyrical. Now, I'm not sure why. I think at this point in time, Nolin wouldn't be playing with us. I don't think we had a band at this point in time.
No, it was just you and I.
I don't even think we had a band.
We didn't have.
We were just writing.
We were just writing. Yeah, we weren't performing. We were just writing songs.
And so maybe I was just thinking more about how I was like going to do the song solo or something at this point, and so I lost the idea of the sax solo, which is crazy because everybody just heard the sax solo from when we played it with Matt just a minute ago. Like that's like a core part of the song. But anyway, I don't know, maybe it wasn't on my mind. But anyway, here's the this is from what I called the Woolly Booger demos, so maybe we were working on an album at this point in time. I'm not exactly sure. So anyway, this is a clip of the bridge.
Grab a cup of courage and stretch yourself out by the fire. I'll try if I must to answer thus all that you inquire. The creature blamed the maker for his isolation and his loathsome misery, and the maker and his pride could not abide his responsibility. Victim in the end looked a little bit like me and a bit like you, and the perpetrator, well, who can tell which is which and who is who? The ends of the earth, they measured their worth by who was last to fall, and the looking glass admits there's not a lot of bitter little monster in us all. With 1,000 generations and countless innovations, we're just DNA. Nucleotides along for the ride with us.
I would say as much fun as that is for you to play the saxophone on, it must be that much fun to sing across the top of it. I don't know, man. I like the vocal approach and the melody there, and everything seems to fit really good. I think the idea was like we were going to use the bridge to wrap up the story, right?
Yeah.
So we told it from the two perspectives, and then it was going to come back around to where we were telling it from our perspective, like it was a story. I think the big thing in that was like showing sympathy for the creature and the maker. Like we can relate to both of them. There's a little monster in us all, I think was a line that's in there. I also like with 1,000 generations and countless innovations, we're just DNA. I think that's a pretty cool like concept and like way to wrap it up. It's like no matter all of the societal changes and everything, we're just animals, right? Like all of us are kind of coming from the same place. These base instincts, these impulses, the same complaints about life, the same biases, all that kind of stuff. But anyway, it wasn't good enough. We didn't keep it. We kept we kept going. We kept working on it. So this was October of 2019. By the end of October, in these Woolly Booger demos, the first two verses were pretty much exactly as they would end up on the final recordings. So we polished off the first two verses almost completely by the time we sort of slowed down on the rewriting process right around here. We picked the song back up in September of 2020. So once again, going back, like heading back towards Halloween. I didn't even think about that till you brought it up. But I guess every time we get into the fall, we'd be like, hey, we really need to finish our Modern Prometheus song. This was also during COVID. So I know like during this point, we weren't playing out or doing anything. I was doing a lot of like writing and rewriting a lot of songs, a lot of videos. I did the Socially Distant tour. That was like the only like musical outlet I had at that point in time. But it was all just to kind of give me something to do. And a lot of the songs that ended up on this record were sort of birthed out of that era. So even though this song was way prior to COVID, I mean, 8 years or whatever prior to COVID, it's still like it found its final form like during that point in life. I think this next thing I'm going to play is another voice note that I sent to you, and it's about rewriting the last verse of the song. All right, so this was from September 2020.
I've been trying to figure out this what to do at the end of modern day Prometheus for 5 years or whatever now. Well, I mean, I guess in that time I've entirely rewritten the song, and I feel like there should be a bridge, and I wrote a bridge. But anyway, I don't know if this is a bridge leading into the final verse or if you just write it like the last verse. But it seems so obvious. The first verse is about the creature, and the second verse is about the maker. The third verse should be about the townspeople, the people as a whole, the mob.
All right, so I almost sound irritated with myself. Like, I almost sound like I'd imagine this is what you guys feel like a lot of times when I get on this, where I'm just like, why am I torturing myself in this way? And then there's like a yawn in the middle of it. So I'm obviously very excited about this idea of continuing to rewrite the song that I've been working on for 5 years. Also, at this point, I took a stab at like completely rewriting the bridge. So instead of keeping the same chord progression that I had kept up to this point in time, I changed the whole thing completely. So this also from September 2020. This is working on Modern Prometheus again. Oh, I should mention, this was a change. So this is called... No, this doesn't happen till later. I'm going to go ahead and say it anyway. At some point in time, I figured out, I remembered, or maybe you caught me on this, that the song is not modern day Prometheus, or the book. It is modern Prometheus. Frankenstein or the modern Prometheus.
I think I remember telling you that. And so, you're like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, I had been using modern day Prometheus on everything kind of right up until this point in time. So fortunately, before we put the album out, at least, we caught it and realized what we were doing there. All right, anyway, so this is me completely rewriting the bridge in September of 2020.
Nature and nurture, one and the same. I'm alive. We ain't got no control. Oh, I'm alive. Ain't got time to leave on. I'm alive. And he can't control the things he thinks he's alive. Nothing to do and think of laying down. No, I'm running to you. I'm baby sad and blue.
So obviously the lyrics make absolutely no sense right there. I'm just making stuff up off the top of my head, but I kind of like the music.
Reminds me of like a rock opera.
It does kind of have that sort of vibe to it, right? Even though the song, like you brought this up a minute ago, like it was important to us to kind of have it based like on the novel and to bring that forth because we love that novel so much. But in that second verse, the maker appraised with a critical gaze and a Promethean eye. He's a mess, but by God, he's alive. When we do "He's alive" right there, we scream it, and that is a nod. So originally to the let's see, I put it in my notes, 1931 movie, right? Like it's a nod to that. I've probably watched that movie one time in my entire life, but I've watched Mel Brooks's Young Frankenstein like 100 times.
Putting on the Ritz.
And it's one of my favorite scenes is when Gene Wilder goes over and just sort of like welcomes him into the world. So we really played off of that, like we scream it out like it is in the movie. In the book, Dr. Frankenstein like runs away in horror. Yeah. Like there's no celebration of the creature being alive at that point in time. But in the movie, and I think it's alive in the movie instead of he's alive. That's where, we do kind of give a nod to that. And I love Young Frankenstein so much too. Not in the same way or for the same reasons as Mary Shelley's novel, but it is one of the absolute funniest things that I think one of the funniest movies of all time. The rewriting continues. Oh, the reason I mentioned all that is because obviously I wanted something about that in that bridge. But anyway, the rewriting continued into April of 2021. So we were still going with it. I sent another voice memo to you around this point in time. It has music and it has the melody, and that was like, here's the music and here's the melody. Help me finish these lyrics. We dropped the lyrics for the bridge and added the sax, like with the idea of adding a sax solo back. The smart move at this point in time. I was still kind of playing with the music that was going to go into the solo break. So I didn't know if it was going to be, I hadn't gone all the way back to the original thing yet. Sometimes Nolin was like playing some leads on top of the verse and like different things we were trying there. The idea for the last verse, though, by April of 2021, it kind of settled into its final form where it was going to be from the perspective of the captain. So that was about the point in time where we landed on that and really knew what we wanted to do with that last verse.
You know what's interesting? We had mentioned that when we first started rewriting the song, and then we scrapped it. We never wrote for that, but that was the original idea, was like it would be the captain. And then you're like, no, let's talk about the townspeople. I was like, that's a great idea, townspeople.
Yeah.
That's, people remember that from the movie, even if they haven't read the book.
Right.
There's a big mob scene.
So what you're saying is I should have listened to you early on, and I would have saved several months of torture.
It wasn't. It wasn't me. I mean, we're both talking. It's like the last scenes are on this boat that's ice locked.
So we did. That is us going back to the novel, right?
Yeah.
It's us because in the novel, throughout it's written in first person, but from the perspective of the creature and Dr. Frankenstein, and also from Captain Walton. Mm-hmm. And I think the novel starts with Captain Walton and ends with Captain Walton.
Bookends him, yeah.
And so it is the logical thing, and it makes sense that we would have thought about it before. And it also makes sense that I would have been too hard-headed to just take the obvious out and write the freaking verses it needed to be.
I went along with you. I was like, yeah, let's do the townspeople. I mean, I was all in. Let's do it this way. But it's funny that was our original idea.
It was.
And we just never got to the point of writing it until, 2 years later?
Yeah. May of 2021. So in Captain Walton's letters, so when he's writing his part, it's him writing letters to his sister Margaret, and so we worked that into the final verse too, as a way of like introducing the final verse. So I'm gonna go ahead and play it. This one's called Modern Day Prometheus Margaret Update from May of 2021.
Margaret, my goal is to reach the pole or to meet my end. Ambition left unbridled, do you end? All was heard from the maker's words and those of the fiend. There ain't much difference between them and me. We're all just DNA.
So that Margaret scream at the end, man, it comes in a little early. Like, it's not where all of the other verses start. So I have to like get a deep breath and then like start it and hold it out. And it kind of holds through that one in the rhythm. It's the first reference to Margaret in the entire song because it's the first part where we're speaking from the captain's perspective, and it just seems so random, like coming out of the solo, that all of a sudden I'm screaming Margaret into the microphone. It cracks me up. I don't know why I think it's so funny, but even now when as soon as I hear me start to sing Margaret, it makes me laugh. Margaret's also not a name that's often worked into songs.
Unless you're Ray Stevens.
Oh yeah, it's me again, Margaret.
It's me again,
right?
Margaret. Yeah, it's a little bit different.
Ambition left unbridled will do you in is your line all the way. I remember that very specifically. It's one of my favorite lines in the entire song. It's a great reference because it like ties the three characters together, because it can be said
of all of them,
yeah. Right? Like the creature's ambition to be accepted into the world, it was the thing that kept doing him in, right? And obviously the maker's ambition and like bringing life was the thing that did him in. And then this thing with the captain of like
trying to reach the North Pole
was the thing, and he's like writing it into his letter. This is the thing that's bringing it about, but I'm going to do this. Margaret, my goal was to reach the pole or to meet my end, right? And so it really ties all three of them together. And in addition to that, it's such a perfect balance with the last line, which I thought really sort of summed the whole song up, which is there ain't much difference between them and me. And that's kind of have been the point of this from the very beginning, right? It's sort of like it doesn't matter where we come from or how we got there or what we're doing. We're all kind of the same thing and coming from the same place. And then also this sort of challenge of like, do we have free will to change, or are we just destined to be what we're genetically built to be? So I think, like, in the end, even though it took us the longest to get to it, that third verse like really landed about as good as we could want it to land. We did add this song to some of the set lists with Fall Down Trees once after you and Porkchop and I and Bradley played together. We obviously weren't doing it in that group, but after Jonah was back in the band, we went back. This was the point where we went back to the slow bridge and brought the sax solo back in, and obviously Nolin's back in the band at this point in time, so why would we not do that? So let's listen to this. This is from a band practice in July of 2023. The band Fall Down Trees with Jonah Glenn on drums. Jonah freaking tearing it up right there, man. Like, that's as good. I think that was the best drum take on that song that I heard the whole time through, which is funny because we played a gig after that wasn't nearly that good. But that night in practice, boy, he was really freaking on it. Good job, Jonah. All right, let's play the bridge here too, so you can hear what we were doing with the sax at this point. That's pretty cool, man. Nolin doodling around all over the place. I almost said diddling. I'm sorry.
That definitely has more of a jazz feeling to me.
I think so too.
You know, Jonah's a very accomplished jazz.
He can play.
He's a jazz guy.
And the other thing, right there, first of all, it's hilarious that Porkchop and Jonah are still discussing what they're going to do while you and me started playing the song.
We'll come in right here.
Right here, because Dustin's already going. So is Nolin. This is also the first instance that I found, or maybe this wasn't the first instance, but this is the first band where we started doing the thing where we went from the sort of airy, spacey part of the bridge to the boom, chank, like that sort of funky thing, which is cool. We did that in the final recordings too, and I think it's a big part because, Nolin can just riff, like he can just go nuts on top of that chord progression all day. But when we change the rhythm behind it, like it pushes him forward, like it builds, and you can hear him like feed off of that right here too, and definitely in the final recordings. So after Jonah left the band, we started working on the album in earnest, and I know we've talked about this probably in every episode. I had recorded a demo version with just the guitar riff for everybody, the official demos that I had sent to the entire band before Jonah left. And probably more than any song except for maybe Night Terrors, like listening to those official demos, you're just like, God, this needs drums. Like, it just doesn't have any sort of ass to it at all. It doesn't have any funk or the danceability or the stuff that makes the song so much fun. And so it was obviously missing those drums pretty bad in those official demos. To me, though, like, it was really important that the song be on this album. Like, even we had to figure out a way to get it on there, mainly because it fit so well into sort of the concept that was developing at this point in time. So where this works in the final recording and the way that this works in my head, like fitting into the concept, is it's on the first half of the record, the Before Midnight part of the record. And so obviously he's like working his way towards the breakdown, but not like completely in the after midnight darkness that he's going to find a little bit later on. And so there are these parallels here where he's trying to distract himself by like reading a book, which is a thing that I would do. And if you remember in Night Terrors, well, the record, the needle keeps skipping out of the record anyway, and I can't stand to watch the evening news, and like he's already disillusioned with everything else that's going on. So he picks up the book, one of his favorites, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, or the Modern Prometheus.
Yes.
And he tries to distract himself by like reading this book. It echoes Shoot the Messenger. So Shoot the Messenger is also a sat down to read a book thing, though Shoot the Messenger is much darker and like he's in the Bible like trying to find meaning in life there. But the thing is, in both instances the character is reading to distract himself from what's going on around him, but keeps pulling himself back into his sort of breakdown by relating to the characters that are there, right? And so those two things are echoed in Shoot the Messenger, though it's more darker, as well as this sort of more lighthearted thing with the Modern Prometheus. I should say here, it's not really that lighthearted of a song. Like, it just feels that way because the music and everything's there.
Music, and then with the finished product with the background singers who we'll talk to later, that adds an air of almost happiness.
It does, yeah. But when you really dig into the lyrics, there's some
I would contend it's as deep as Shoot the Messenger.
I think so, too.
In a different way. It doesn't have direct religious overtones, but it does too, because you're talking about the maker,
right?
The creature. There's a
reason the Modern Prometheus is referenced there too, which is a much older than Christianity religious reference, but still a religious reference. And look, I've made this joke for years. I'm not a religious person. I did grow up in the Baptist church and have read the Bible through multiple times, and just like anything, I've spent a lot of time thinking about it. I will, like, one of the reasons that I would argue with an atheist at just about any point in time is, like, religion definitely can have its positive benefits, and as far as the Bible's concerned, it's the Christian Bible, it's slapped full of incredibly good stories that have a moral backbone, right? But you can find stories with a moral backbone in fiction as well. My joke was always, well, you can get that stuff from Harry Potter too, right? You can obviously also get it from Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. And I think that's one of the reasons that I love that book so much, is so much of it it challenges your way of looking at the world. It challenges your sense of empathy, but it also challenges your sense of right and wrong, and this sort of, you're putting yourself in the position of anti-heroes, and you have to be able to empathize and look at life in this certain perspective that is in its way almost religious. Also, one of the things that I was thinking about at this point is, like, this may also be, even though he's reading it may be, we had thought about making this the second or third song on the record and like actually pushing it up a little bit, where the main character, like, I'm actually reading to the kids at bedtime. Like, this is the story that I'm reading to them. And even though in my head it's bouncing around like how this is relating to my life and the sort of feudal aspects of it, I'm putting a happy face on while I'm reading the novel because of who I'm reading it to, which also ties into who some of our special guests may be here in just a few minutes. Before we decided to use found sounds and like rhythms for the record, so at first none of us played drums, so we just assumed they wouldn't be on there. I didn't see a way we could pull this song off the way it was written. Like, I didn't know how we could possibly do this just like with the instruments that we had without drums. So I did try to rewrite the song again. But this time I was keeping the lyrics, and I was trying to come up with different ways of playing it on the guitar that would keep like the roots of the song and the sort of rhythmic bass without having to have the drums there. So we talked about the dendrological method in the last one, and where each song was going to be arranged like a tree, and you had your rhythmic roots, and then you had the trunk, the meat in the middle, and then the sort of flourishes with the branches and the leaves. So I wanted the acoustic guitar for this song to be the roots, since we didn't have the drums. So I tried to rewrite it 3 different times. I came up with 3 distinct different approaches to the music that I thought we could pull off as a 3-piece. So I'm going to kind of play those back to back for you here. So here's the first one. We'll call it version 1.
Creature stood outside the walls and addressed the dark. We menagerie for the stars, born to bear the burden of a beating heart. Our destiny determined from the start. We just DNA, tides along for the ride with a molecular fate.
So you can see I'm kind of like countryfying it, you know, which would not have fit onto this record in the end at all. Like, it would have been way more country than anything else that's really on here. It also just doesn't work, right? Like the focus of the beat is in a different spot, and as good as the lyrics are, the part of this song that's fun is the music, you know, and so I'm obviously trying to get rid of it, which doesn't make much sense. So this is version 2.
Creatures stood outside the walls and addressed the dark. We menagerie for the stars, born to bear the burden of a beating heart. Our destiny determined from the start. We just DNA, nucleotides along for the ride with a molecular fate. Nature and nurture, one and the same.
So with that one, I kind of like shifted the way I was strumming around to kind of hit that backbeat, you know, and to give it that little oonchy, oonchy, oonchy thing. That does sound a little bit like Paul Simon to me. Like, it's kind of got a little bit of a Paul Simon vibe with the acoustic guitar. But, I mean, obviously still not there. Like, still not where we wanted it to be. And then this was version 3.
Creatures stood outside the walls and addressed the dark. Are we menagerie for the stars, born to bear the burden of a beating heart. Our destiny determined from the start. We just DNA, nucleotides along for the ride with a molecular fate. Nature and nurture, one and the same.
So that one's kind of interesting. Like, I'm going to say Heartland Rock. I feel like I've said that more times while we've been doing this podcast than I ever had before I ever did a podcast in my entire life. I hate like genre names like that anyway. It's so freaking stupid. But it's definitely like a Tom Petty, Bruce Springsteen sort of approach, you know, to writing a song. It's similar to how Hand of God, I tried to like do a version of Hand of God that sort of had that same feel. I very much want to write songs like Tom Petty and Bruce Springsteen. I don't know that I ever have like written a song that actually carries that rhythm. Now you did. What's that song of yours?
It's the Vigil for a Dying Town. That's the one that's got the Bruce Springsteen. I've been listening to a lot of Springsteen. I didn't rip him off, but it definitely bled into my thoughts. And I got done listening to my recording, and I said, "Man, I wish I could sing like Bruce Springsteen."
God, I know it, man. Yep. So that one might appear. I've been thinking maybe that would be a good like song for a single or an EP. Maybe we put it with Armadillos and put that one out there. So maybe we do get a Heartland Rock single.
I'm gonna start gargling with gravel and razor blades so I can get that Bruce Springsteen voice.
You do it, Chop. I'm excited to hear it. That one actually sounds a little bit better because I can play the riff a little bit more like it is on the recording. But at the same time, like these are all concessions, and like making musical concessions is not a thing we want to do, right? And obviously, like listening to that, you're like, all right, well, this isn't as good. Like this isn't as good as the other demos of the song that you hear throughout
with a full band,
right? So why force the song onto the record unless you can put it on there and make it sound as good as it possibly can? And I think for that reason alone, none of these really stuck. the whole hook of the song is the guitar riff and the sax riff, right? And that focus on the backbeat and the weird syncopations, like that's what the song's all about. This is one of the first songs where we took the official demos and we tried to dub on top of them to make the final takes. So we did this with a couple of songs where, you know, we had the demo and the click track. Kind of, I think we were really wanting to do it that way first. Is we thought that the official demos were going to turn into the record. We found out later that wasn't going to work. We needed to kind of start over, but it did give us a chance to sort of test our capabilities in the studio. We recorded, every track was recorded to a click track with a guitar and with scratch vocals, and then brought to you guys where y'all went in and we dubbed everything on top of that, right? Not just y'all, obviously. Like I would do the drums on top of it, and we'd do a bass on top of that, and we'd do sax on top of everything. Like we kind of layered when we built this album instead of recording everything at the exact same time. That makes things difficult for a song like this where there's a time change, right? And there is a significant time change in the middle. So there's not a way I could find to adjust the tempo of the metronome in the right spot in the song to be able to record to the metronome. So the only way that I figured that we could do this is I created two completely different tracks. So we actually recorded it like it was two different songs. One was the first two verses and then like a gap, and then we started back over with the last verse and the chorus. All that's at the same tempo, so we could record to a click track. And then the second track was just the bridge at a slower tempo, and then I was going to go in and like edit all of that together. When we did this for the first take tracking, so when we were doing this over the demos, you and Nolin and Porkchop overdubbed the sax and an upright bass, I think it is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Chop, over the two parts independently. So we kind of recorded the two parts like whole songs, and then so y'all could hear the click because there weren't drums, and then I edited it afterwards. And so these were the results. This was a tracking first take over the official demos.
He's just DNA. Nucleotides along for the ride of molecular fate. Nature and nurture, one and the same.
Sorry to cut you off there, Nolan.
You're good.
So, a few things there. First of all, very precise backing vocals. Like I had, like this is, you know, doing the official demos, I was kind of playing with backing vocals for the first time, and this was an easy one, relatively easy for me to sing, hit those notes. They were really tight. They were really clean. This is what we thought the backing vocals were going to be like all the way until a certain point we'll talk about in a few minutes. The other thing is the song still just doesn't drive without the drums. It doesn't matter how much other stuff we're putting in there. Without like a steady rhythm, it just doesn't have any sort of groove to it. It doesn't have that kind of bouncy, like danceableness that makes the song so fun. No. You can kind of hear us trying to make up for that, like on the recordings. Specifically the acoustic guitar and the upright bass. Like there's a very like particular drive to the upright where I can tell, you know, what we're doing is we're trying dendrologically to get those roots in there.
Yeah, even I was trying to play a little bit more staccato, a little bit shorter, try to get that, you know, some kind of like chunkiness in there, right? We're trying to we're screaming at each other in the way that we're playing. This is missing something. But we still haven't gotten to how we can add the thing because we're so damn determined that we're not going to have a drummer in the band that we're just completely blinded by the fact that even though drummers may be bad, some songs need drums. Yeah.
The other thing here is there's not sustain between the first part and the second part, and I doubt many other people can hear it. Porkchop probably can.
Yeah.
I can hear a definitive cut between the verse and the bridge. there's just a split second where there's no sound at all. It's completely quiet, and then the bridge starts back up, which would have bothered me to the ends if I hadn't figured out a way around that. And I had to edit my butt off just to get it to sound as clean as it sounds right there. I think it was good. I think it was good that we tried it this way first, because it let me kind of game plan for how we were going to do it when we redid it and did the final takes. Because I already had to start over from scratch for the final recordings, like, it let me sort of game plan in advance because I knew the strengths and weaknesses of the process, and I could figure out ways to cover up the faults. We started the final recordings for this song on March the 5th. I guess this would have been the year 2023. No, 2024. March 5th, 2024. I'm confused. This was after... So when we started on this song, we had already done everything for Hand of God, Night Terrors, Water Finds Its Way, and Shadow. So this was the 5th song that we worked on. So even though we worked... it was like the first thing we tried to tackle after the official demos. We gave ourselves a chance to figure out how to make stuff work right before we dove into this. And I can remember thinking about that. It's like, I want to wait on Modern Prometheus like as long as we can to make sure we know what we're doing. But then when it came time, it was like a thing that was hanging over my head. Like, how are we going to pull this off? Can we pull this off? Like, do we have enough tools in our back pocket? We were pretty deep in the recording process. We knew how to mic the sax already by this point in time, which was huge. So that saved us a lot of time. But I can kind of remember this being like a big thing of like, we're going to dive into Modern Prometheus now. Mm-hmm. This is also one of the few, maybe the only time, where the first session where we worked on this song, we actually worked on it together. We started with nothing. So I didn't come in with click tracks and guitars and vocals and all that already laid down. You guys watched me record the electric guitar part for the two parts, for the two different sessions that were going to be there. One for the meat of the song, the verses, and the other for the bridge. I can remember that was really bad. I kind of rushed myself more than I usually would, and we've talked about how many takes I do when I do stuff, because I felt like I was kind of wasting you guys' time, like we weren't getting to take advantage of y'all being in here and able to record. And so anyway, I don't remember that going very well, but it did give us something to kind of work off of. So what we did next was we played with the rhythms, and at this point I had recorded all of the rhythm instruments on the whole record. But for this one, we decided we were all going to try to do it together. And we all picked different things to beat on in different parts of the song and like different accents. And we recorded them all completely separately. So we weren't playing them at the same time either. And then we tried to blend them all together into a single drum sound. So this is the drums. This is the drum sound. So this is Modern Prometheus 2. This is the second time that we attacked this song and tried to come up with something for it, with all three of us playing on drums.
He's just DNA. Nucleotides along for the ride with a molecular fate. Nature and nurture, one and the same.
So I let that one go on a little bit longer too, mainly because the first part is awful. Awful. We actually brought it back around a little bit better for the bridge part. I think it's one of those instances where we're playing on the beats, but we're not actually adding to the music in
No.
any way, right?
Right.
Like it's just weird sounds on beats.
I think I was clapping, right?
All right, so I know that there was an ottoman, the orange
Yeah,
ottoman
somebody
sitting over
was
there
beating
next to
on
Pork
that.
Chop. I think
Yeah.
that might have been me.
Yeah.
That's the like sound that's so freaking awful. Nolin was playing the Pork Chop for President guitar.
Yeah.
So he was doing the thing, and then I think you were doing the hand claps.
The
Pork
hand
Chop.
claps, yeah.
So, we played noises on the beat, but it didn't really add anything to the song. It was still really fun to do. Like,
Yeah.
fun. A chance for us to kind of play around and goof off and
It's like the
experiment.
Jingle Bells.
Yeah, absolutely. It's exactly like
Everybody
that.
wanted to play the Jingle Bells on the Christmas EP.
Everybody was fighting over who got to do the jingle
And
bell
then
tracks.
after we did it a couple times, you're like, you can do it. My arm's getting tired.
That's right, I'm done.
Nolan, don't you want to do these jingle bells?
Yeah, we had the full size like orchestra
Oh,
chain
man.
of bells. Like it was the big. It was
Yeah.
Scott Glenn let us borrow those since he has all the percussion. Any person, I just like text, hey Scott, you got any jingle bells? Yeah, absolutely.
Of course I do.
You don't realize how loud those things are.
Oh my God, man! We had to put the mic on the opposite side of the room. All right, we got to save that. We might do an episode around Christmas time on the Christmas EP because there was some fun stuff there too. So yeah. Anyway, we tried it. It didn't groove right. It didn't work. I also didn't like the electric guitar sound either, so we ended up throwing all of that away. And I mean all of it, including like the metronome and where it was set and all of that. And I started over completely from scratch for a third time on this. Actually, I think this would have been the fourth time if you count the official demos. So we kept throwing everything out and starting completely over. So I looked at this. I started on the next Sunday. I spent 10 hours that day just screwing around.
Wow.
Like 10 hours. So the first thing I did was started looking for a good electric guitar sound. So this was pre-pedal board. Once again, I didn't own a pedal board. So pretty much the first thing I did was I could tell that I was having some weird like string sounds when I was playing my electric guitar. It's a fairly new guitar. I hadn't had it set up in a long time. I didn't play it a lot. And so I'm like sitting here recording. I don't want to I usually take my guitars to somebody to work on them, but I'm trying to get a recording down and it's a Sunday afternoon. So I pull up YouTube and I'm like, how can I fix this myself? And so the first thing that I did was watch videos on how to set up my guitar. And so I'm like making truss rod adjustments and adjusting the bridge and all kinds of stuff that is way over my head and I've never done before. But it was like bonding with my guitar. Like I would play a chord and be like, ooh, that feels a little high, or that feels a little low, or it's not quite, the intonation's not exactly right. And I would just keep fiddling with it until I got it exactly where I wanted it to be. And that was cool. After that, I actually did it for one of your guitars. I set your guitar up too.
Yeah.
I've made quite a few adjustments to my electric guitar over time. I still need to take it to somebody to get somebody that knows how to do it. But I feel much better. It's like knowing how to change strings, right? Like, it's not a thing that I like doing or really want to have to do, but if I have to do it, I need to be able to do it, in that pinch. So first I went through and I set my guitar up. Then I spent hours turning knobs on the amp, and then I play a Guild Starfire, and it's got 6 different settings like on the guitar for different ways to arrange the 3 P90 pickups. And so I'm just like turning knobs on the guitar to one setting and then changing the amp and another one until I pick out a few that I like and then dialing them down. But I finally got a guitar tone. Like when I listen to the album and this song in particular, and I've even had people mention this to me, like I got a tone for this guitar that's different than the way I usually play. And if you listen back to some of those live records, you'll hear my usual live guitar tone. Like it's distorted and thick and bottom end. Like that's kind of the sound that I like. This one is really like clean and shimmery. So anyway, I got it isolated out here for you. This is the guitar part from the Modern Prometheus, the final recordings. So once again, that's before I got the pedal board. So all that's coming out of the Supro amp, the Guild Starfire guitar. I think it sounds really good. I also lean into that whammy bar for the bridge, and it's got this like great, like shimmery sort of warble to it that I think sounds really cool. And I had played with that some when we were doing the song live before, but it really stands out like on the recording because I'm sitting here, you know, in isolation and can really work it out. I should have looked to see how many takes of that I did before I got it where I wanted it. Also, I didn't pan that back to the center, so when y'all hear that recording, if you think you're going mad, like it really is just coming out of the right speaker. Sorry about that. I don't think I did any of the panning on this episode. This was also the same day that I found the drum sound that we used for almost the rest of the record. So after I got the guitar dialed in and I got a take down on the guitar on this 10-hour Sunday afternoon, I found the boom chick that I hadn't been able to find up to this point. And that was great because it like took a lot of that, the frustrate, like at first it was like, wow, we can get found sounds, like we can get a rhythm. And then I felt like I needed a different thing on every song. And even though I've got a whole shed full of things to beat on, like only so many things sound good, and to finally find one that I could kind of fall back on was pretty awesome. So what this was the wooden filing cabinet. Not the metal filing cabinet from Night Terrors that we talked about, but the wooden one that sits underneath and matches my desk.
It's a much more warm sound.
It is. It is also a 2-drawer, even though it is, I don't know, about 8 inches shorter than the metal filing cabinet. It's still a 2-drawer filing cabinet. I was hitting the side of it with my left hand, and then I had a box of thumbtacks.
Right there.
Where?
Underneath that book.
Ah, see. Should have got those out in advance. So this is a plastic box of assorted thumbtacks. There are a bunch of the traditional thumbtacks that are all clear. There's a bunch that have little balls on the end and multicolors. There are flags as well as what look like pincushions or mushrooms, like little fabric tops with polka dots. And then there's some that have flowers on top of them as well, in a little plastic compartmentalized case. And that was featured, I think there are more songs with thumbtacks than there are with saxophone. That box of thumbtacks should go in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame one day. How in the world I didn't break that? Like, and not only that, Nolin, when we started working this stuff out live before we got the cajon, you were playing the wooden filing cabinet and the thumbtacks. Like, we really considered playing gigs with a wooden filing cabinet and a plastic box of thumbtacks. How we didn't destroy it, I have no idea. And it's definitely, you can attest, it's really hard to be consistent with the sound.
Sometimes it'll make a snare sound, sometimes it won't.
Yeah, sometimes it's just dick. So, but that Sunday was the day that I found that sound. So I was also struggling with the metronome on this song, because the metronome goes tick, 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 tick. And I mentioned this before. I adjusted the metronome sound so it did sound like drums. So it was boom, tick, boom, tick. But that's not the beat of this song. Like, this song swings. And we have debates to this day about exactly what swing is and how it works. But this song's got it. And the accents for the song were on the offbeats of the metronome. And so I never could, like, play into that metronome. Like, it was hard to keep in time, and then it was like the metronome fought against the rhythm of the guitar. So what I did here was I removed the 2. So if you think 1, 2, 3, 4, now it went 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, and it allowed me to add space where that 2 would be and like kind of change the way the rhythm was accenting. And that was another thing that really helped throughout the recording process. For the drums here too, like, I greatly simplified what I was trying to do with the beat. And this is much more simple than what the 3 of us were doing when we were all combining it together. But I kind of went to a boom chick back and forth thing. So I'll play it for you. Here's the drums isolated from the final takes of Modern Prometheus.
Oh, Mickey, you're so fine, you blow my mind. Hey, Mickey.
That is exactly what it sounds like. You can really hear there in isolation, like the differences in hit of the like
Yeah.
it really sounds like a box of thumbtacks when you listen to it isolated, even
Yeah.
though I think that would be hard to pick out if you were just listening to the song. I say it's simple. It wasn't easy, especially for me, like as a non-drummer, and I don't know like how to describe the feel of the rhythm. It's almost straight, but it's not straight. It's and it almost turns inside out. Like I was obviously going left hand, right hand, left hand, right hand. I think a more accomplished musician would have added some doubles on the left hand or some doubles on the right hand somehow, but that was just the only way I could get it to work. I don't know, Lee. I don't know. I'm sure there's terminology for the feel or whatever, but I don't know what it is, and I honestly don't care enough. Drummers just make that crap up anyway. It's not real musical terminology. So, mostly what I'm doing is trying to follow the riff, right?
Yeah.
All right. It still wasn't like fully complete yet, though. There was rhythm there that was tying us together, which was huge because it allowed me to take the bridge track that I was working on and then the rest of the song track that I was working on and merge them together so y'all would hear a drum beat throughout when you recorded, and y'all could record to the whole song already edited, which was really important. But I did notice like it didn't completely fill out and add everything that we wanted just yet, and it wasn't until I started playing with the rhythm of the acoustic guitar. And what I was doing before, and you've heard acoustic and electric together on several of these recordings, I'm playing the same riff on both, right? I stopped playing the riff on the acoustic here, and I started playing it more like those different versions when I was trying to rewrite the song earlier on, where I'm doing an up and down strum, da 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 da. And because I was doing it like that, when I added that to the drums, I realized that more than like the tonality of the guitar, like the musicality of the guitar, it was my pick scraping against the strings that was really adding extra punch to the rhythm. So I isolated the acoustic guitar here and the drums together so you can kind of hear that full rhythm sound. So it's that. What was that? Is that an eighth note?
I'm not sure. It definitely sounds a lot more. I don't want to say faster. I don't know if it's the same speed as that previous clip you put, the demo or whatever.
But it adds energy to the song.
It definitely has
so
more.
those are both on the metronome. So those are the exact same speed, but it feels faster.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, adding those. I think the eighth notes, I guess. And that's that pick scrape. So when I was doing the final mixes, I actually focused more on keeping the sound of the pick in there usually than I did the other way where I was trying to get rid of the sounds of the guitar. I kind of left it in there.
Yeah, and that definitely helped me out a lot more than the metronome did.
Yeah, for sure, right? Because the metronome wasn't feeding us all of that, right? So this, I really do think that allowed us to play and layer on top of it better than we ever could have doing it the way we were doing it before we were trying to layer on a metronome. So on the 12th of whatever month we're in, what month are we in? May? I'd imagine this is May. Chop and Nolin came over to work on this song, and we started with the bass. So at this point in time, y'all have the drums in the background. You've got my electric guitar and acoustic guitar and my vocals, and I have edited everything together so y'all are recording on top of one track that has the bridge in it, and the time change and everything's already built in there. So you can do full takes of the song all the way through, and I'm not going to have to do that editing later on. With the idea being that sustain from your instruments will tie those pieces together and make it sound of a piece. The bass line had been around forever, right? Like since it was Umbrella way back in the Matt days. So this was one we didn't have to write in the studio, which was good because it let us focus on the tone of the bass and also on the recording of the song instead of like trying to figure out an arrangement. What you came up with, like recording this in the studio, which had this was one I never touched the bass on this. You added some like really tasty variations to the bass line that were kind of based on that rhythm that I'd finally gotten, right? That full rhythm sound that we had finally found. And so, anyway, I'll play it. Here we go. This is an isolated bass from Modern Prometheus. So I like that little slide up. Man, I think that is so freaking cool.
It's the only thing I learned from watching that James Jamerson video. It's the only thing I can even do.
Well, I'm glad we got you there.
And it changed a lot too, going from the upright, because trying to do that on the upright, my upright bass is set up for bluegrass. And if it were a jazz setup, could probably do it because it's a lot closer to the fretboard, but it's higher because of the way I pick in bluegrass. So we switched to the electric bass there, and that allowed me to do that sort of stuff.
To do that movement.
You try to do that in a bluegrass band, they might kick you out.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, I have done that on one of our songs with the Tugalo Holler, and nobody's noticed yet. But I slip it in there, and I learned it from this song. That's where I learned it from. So thank you to the Fall Down Trees.
Also, I think the tone that we got is really good. Like, it's got that same sort of shimmeriness of the guitar, like really clean and present. We moved it back, obviously, but there's that sort of treble part of the bass that a lot of times we'll leave out, but we kind of leaned on it and added it back in there, and I think it sounds really good.
It gives it that ska reggae feel a little bit back into it, which I really like. It helps me out a lot.
I agree. I definitely think it has that. And just honestly, it's probably top bass line on the record. Like, I think you really freaking nailed this song, Porkchop.
Well, I appreciate it.
We recorded the sax the same day that we recorded the bass, and one big advantage, we knew exactly how to set the mics up so we could jump right in and record. So it was set them up and then have Nolin take one step back and one step forward until we got it exactly where we wanted it to be. But it prevented a lot of like the engineering stuff that we were having to do up to this point that kind of takes you out of the headspace of a musician. And so we kind of got to dive right into the fun stuff. Since we went back to the original bridge of the song, so this is the same bridge that we used in the original version of Umbrella 2. This is something that Nolin had spent a lot of time playing on and soloing over the top of live and in practices and stuff. So another example of like how much easier this stuff is when you know the song before you start recording it instead of trying to make it up in the studio. Nolin, you don't write solos the way like I write a solo, but this is one where like there are things that you were doing back in 2015 that you pulled back in here too. You had a pretty good idea of where you were going to go. Also, we knew like the change in the rhythm of the song, where it went from the sort of spacey to the sort of funky part. You knew where that was going to come in and how to build off of that. So a lot of this stuff this is probably as close to writing a solo as you get, even though it's still pretty.
There's stuff that I remember that you hear it, you do the same thing. You're like, ooh, I kind of like that. You know? So I'll keep it in my back pocket. Try to at least. Yeah.
Try to remember it and remember to bring it back, and then you try to bring it back, and it doesn't sound exactly the same as it did before, but it's pretty close. This is the longest instrumental break on the entire record. I think probably by far, right? Like, I mean, there's songs where you play in and out, but as far as just a solo where it's nothing but instrumental, I think this is the other one would be The Setting Sun, and I think this one's a little bit longer. But what that means is it takes a lot out of you to record it straight through, right? Like, this wasn't a thing where like the other parts of this song where you're going did. If you did all of that in one take, you would pass out. Like,
because I don't think there's a part in the song where I'm not playing.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think there's sax on pretty much every single note throughout. But in this solo, you kind of do have to do that, right? Like, you do have to play all the way through sort of in a single take. And I think we all kind of went into this expecting it was going to take us a while for us to get this part down, right? Like, it's good. We're going to have to give Nolin some space, let him catch his breath, like get back into it again, get his energy back up. We were wrong. And Nolin, I swear to God, like, I hear musicians say this all the time, and this is one of those things where it's like, we recorded this album live in studio, where it's like they're trying to make it sound like they're better musicians because they did that. This really is a one-take solo. Like, Nolin played this song, this solo break, one time all the way through, and that's the solo without any editing that ended up on the record. And not only is that, like, anybody can do that. Like, the reason that I think it's stupid when people brag about that is because, well, you probably could have done it better, right? Like, just because you played a solo, like, everybody can do that. The difference is, from almost the first note, there was, like, an energy in this where I know for me, like, I felt it in that moment of, like, holy shit, like, he's going somewhere with this, and I can't believe this is happening, like, right now. Up to this point, we didn't really have that sort of, like, moment in the studio where we had a musical moment that really sort of that stood out and, like, had that energy.
Yeah. I can dive more into it if you want to play it first, or I can probably explain it better.
I don't think I'm going to play it. I think I'm going to wait and let them hear the whole solo
well,
at the end of
the thing is how long is it? Like 4 minutes long?
So the song itself is about 4 minutes long, and I think the solo is 2 of it.
Okay.
So the solo's half the tune.
Yeah, I think the reason that is, it only took me one take, is like you mentioned before, is like I've been playing it, you know, live and in practice, and, you know, a lot of those times I don't get more than one take. You know,
right? Yeah, at a live show you don't.
Well,
right?
it's kind of something that's kind of like been my job. Is like, okay, solo time, you don't get, well, you know, one try. You know, it's your job to not screw this solo up. That's why we hired you. You not say, hey, can I try that again? You know, do you need to practice that again? I kind of pride myself. It's like, okay, I got it. This is my job. I'm a saxophone player. I'm not a rhythm guitar player. I'm not a drummer. I'm not a keyboard player or anything like that. It's my job to do this. It's like, yes, coach, I can do this for you. And not only can I do it for you, but yes, I can do it for you.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're not going to call it in. You're going to knock it out, right?
Or at least try to, you know.
For sure. So if you just imagine the way the shed is set up, my desk is kind of in the back corner of the shed, but I'm not facing the corner. I'm facing the wall, sort of at a 45-degree angle, with the corner of the shed to my left, facing the wall head on. And Nolin is recording back to my right. So I can, like, look to my right, over my right shoulder, and I can see Nolin there, and I'm looking at Nolin's left shoulder, and he's facing towards the back of the shed. And Porkchop is sitting on the couch exactly where you're sitting right now, if I'm not mistaken, which is directly in front of where Nolin's recorded. So Nolin is playing saxophone at Porkchop, and I can kind of look at him side-eyed to my right. Mm-hmm. And when you got into it, I kind of glanced over. Like, when you got into it, right? Like, I could feel that energy early on, but when I got, like, you know, a couple of bars into the solo, it was evident that you were, like, somewhere else in that song. And I kind of glanced. I try to always look at my computer, which would mean Nolin isn't seeing my face. He's seeing my profile and not seeing my reactions, which is what I want. But I kind of glanced over my right shoulder to look at you, and you were, like, completely eyes closed, like, absolutely lost in the solo. And so I'm trying to, like, keep looking at my screen, but I glance over and I look at you, and then I turn and I look at Porkchop. And Porkchop's eyes are, like, big, same as mine, with this shit-eating grin on his face, same as mine. Just like both of us, like, had this moment of, like, oh my God, man, like, something's happening here.
This is magic.
Absolutely. The thing I was most scared of is, like, the power was going to go out, you know? Or, like, a motorcycle was going to drive down the road, or Arlo was going to start barking right outside the door. Like, I don't know how much we've talked about that, but that is a concern in the shed, is, like, the helicopter decides to fly right over the house and you got to stop what you're doing. Yeah, or it rains.
Or a tree falls down right behind it.
Absolutely. We did have that happen at a practice.
Ironically enough.
I was thinking about this. I don't know, like, that we ever had a... if we're doing the podcast and it rains, there's just going to be rain in the background. Like, it's a metal roofed building.
Yeah.
Like, it's really loud. So loud that I have to turn on the big tube amp speaker stereo system to watch TV when it's raining because the regular TV won't go loud enough for me to hear it. I don't think we ever had a practice that got, or a recording session that got canceled because of the rain. And we wouldn't have been able to record with it raining. Like, there was no way we could have done it. So we got really lucky. And we were really lucky on this one that we got a clean take because, once again, one take and Nolin knocked it out. So I've got some notes here that I wrote after that recording session that I'll read to you guys. All right, so this is me quoting me in my book. I think this was a turning point on the record, and it came on the heels of a frustrating session that ended up in the can. So that's referencing the last time that we did it with the rhythms and everything, where we ended up just scrapping it all. We knew we had something really special on tape, and it boosted our confidence and relaxed us a bit. Nolin's always been our secret weapon. Not only is he incredibly talented and his style's unique, but having an alto sax with the style of music we play is pretty unprecedented. And Nolin plays with his guts. He doesn't write shit out like I do. And because of this, his performances can be a bit inconsistent. I mean, he's better than most on his worst days, but on his best days, he's transcendent. And we finally got the transcendence on tape with studio quality. I think it was the first time that we had ever actually done that, where we had a clean recording of the thing that Nolin had been doing live and that we had been doing live. We had it on tape, and it was going to be featured on the record. So it wasn't just that we had good songs and good recordings of the songs, but we were showing an instrumental prowess that up to that point we hadn't really been able to show off. I've also got a quote here from Nolin. I think a good strategy for... I should make Nolin read this so it's in his voice. He probably couldn't read my chicken scratch, but... I think a good strategy for recording a sax solo is blasting Randy Rhoads in my headphones right before. I used to do it in jazz band. So Randy Rhoads is the inspiration for Nolin's sax solo on Modern Prometheus.
Yeah. Only I just drive that Mustang. I had a little CD changer, and the only ones I had was a Black Sabbath album and then a Sublime album.
Right.
And I used to listen to Crazy Train and get practice the triplets and all, whatever, But that's all I had. I get too nervous listening to Coltrane or Charlie Parker. I can't do that.
Right, absolutely. So you got to feed off the rock guitar. I think that's cool as hell, man. Mm-hmm. I kind of had a similar experience. When I was in high school, I didn't listen to music. I listened to music
same.
As a thing in the car, but I wasn't really into it. And so my CD collection was Metallica, Hank Williams Jr., Chronic 2001, it just stuff that people I knew listened to or whatever, and I'd go buy the CDs. The first CD I ever bought with my own money was Will Smith's Big Willie Style. On your mark, ready, set, let's go. Dance floor pro, I know you know I go psycho with my new joint hit. Just can't sit, gotta get jiggy with it.
Yeah, funny enough,
and do the whole thing still to this day.
The first one I ever bought with my money was the Wild Wild West album.
Nice. Look, we're so Will Smith inspired in this band, and we didn't even know it until this moment.
That also had that Carlos Santana song on it.
Oh, they did though, man. Yeah, I remember hearing "Smooth" for the first time with Matchbox 20. Mm-hmm. That's the song, right?
Rob Thomas.
Rob Thomas, yeah.
And that's Santana's guitar solo, and I'm like, what is that? That's amazing. So yeah, it took me a while to get back, to the good stuff. And so I had this real weird CD collection, and I drove this old 72 Ford F100 pickup truck. And I don't remember what it was, the door key. I didn't have a door key or something, so I always left the passenger door unlocked so I could sneak in. Somebody knew the trick, whatever it was, and knew that my CD case was behind the bench seat. And so they stole my CD case and all my CDs. And my stepdad, Doug, always, he has a huge, wide-ranging taste in music. He listens to all kinds of stuff. But, he was the one that listened to classic rock. When I grew up, I listened to I listened to 90s country music is what we listened to in the car. And Doug, he was kind of he was a badass, He drove this little Mustang too, and he had the amp and the big the speaker system that would rattle the trunk in that thing. And his favorite band of all time is Pink Floyd. And so he introduced me to Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin and all of these rock bands. And I wasn't really paying much attention to them, but we listened to it in the car. And so after all of my CDs got stolen, I raided his CD case.
Yeah.
And I looked for bands that I'd listened to with him, but also that I had some hippie friends that I was getting to know were into. And so I got Led Zeppelin 4. I got Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, and Wish You Were Here, and the Grateful Dead's Skeletons from the Closet, which was their like greatest hits compilation. And so I snagged those 4 CDs, and I drove this 88 Honda Prelude. And like those were the CDs, like that was all I listened to for months after that. And one night I left my job at Bilo. It was the middle of the summer. I'm riding down the road with the windows and the sunroof open in the Prelude, and I put Pink Floyd's Wish You Were Here on, and Shine On You Crazy Diamond played. And I was listening to David Gilmour play that guitar, and like it brought me to tears. And that was the first time I had been moved musically. Like I had listened to music and it just like hit me in the gut in a way that had never happened to me before. And I was obsessed. And from that moment on, like for that Christmas, my parents bought me, it's still sitting there, the Grateful Dead Grateful Dead, what's it called? The Golden Road box set. And so it was like their first 8 albums or whatever in a CD box set. I got it for Christmas. I went like down the deep end and I started researching. And that one moment, my CDs getting stolen and then stealing CDs from Doug was the thing that changed my entire life and sent me down like this deep dive of listening to music. All right, I don't know why I went there, but anyway, cool. Good job, guys. Later that same night, after the saxophone recording, I recorded the whistle intro, and I did some backing vocals for it too. So we were looking for a way to like start the song off that wasn't so abrupt, which is kind of funny because we wanted to be abrupt with Night Terrors, right?
Yeah.
But with this one, we didn't want to dial in so much, and so I thought it would be cool if somehow like it came in and it sounded like I was like walking around in the shed like whistling the melody to myself. And so I actually cut it out. Here's a clean take of the whistle intro. And that snap at the end's part of it too. So I was sitting in front of the mic, I whistled it, and then I snapped my fingers and timed that up at the beginning of the song. The hardest part with all that, though, is I wanted it to sound distant, and I did it right into the microphone. And so every time I would mess with the whistle, it would just sound like it was right in your ears. So it took me, there's no telling how much time I spent going through different levels of reverb to get it to sound like it was me on the other side of the room doing it instead of me whistling in your ear. On March 19th, we had reached the halfway point of the record. So we decided to spend some time like tightening up some of the earlier recordings, stuff that we did before we really knew what we were doing. So we kind of very much like a record pauses in the middle. And I should mention it too. We always wanted this on vinyl, and we may actually achieve that in the near future. Hopefully I can announce that if I can get it taken care of before the end of this podcast. I always wanted a record that was built like a vinyl record. I think that's the perfect way to listen to an album. And the two sides have different feels to them as well, right? And so this one was arranged with that in mind, where the middle of the album is midnight, and the leading up to midnight has a completely different vibe than the after midnight part. And so we did kind of have a stop in recording where we went back through the first 5 songs and really tried to tighten them up. This is the point where we tried to do like sax takes for Shadow, and it didn't work. I know we've talked about that already. But Nolin had an idea on this like goof off day, where what if we did because I had these like tight backing vocals in there, and Nolin says like, what if we do the backing vocals kind of in this punkish sort of barroom style?
Yeah, like Dropkick Murphys or something.
Yeah.
Father Molly.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Shipping
sort
off
of
to Boston.
Irish like drinking song.
Yeah.
I love it. So what we did was we set the condenser mics up in stereo, and then Porkchop and Nolin stood like 4 feet away from the microphone. So way, way back, like from the mics. So you're getting a ton of like this room sound. And then because I'm so freaking loud, I stood about a foot behind Porkchop and Nolin and sang over y'all's shoulders. So the quote that I wrote down in the book is, we're going to get wild with it. So the way that we did it is I sang the harmony line. So the same harmonies that I was doing into the mic with earphones on so I could really like hear my pitch and make sure it was tight. I was going to do that same thing, but I was going to do it from 5 feet away from the microphone where I couldn't hear myself sing while I was doing it. And then I switched and shouted with Porkchop and Nolin, and we did it over the top of the DNA and Molecular Fate part. I don't know like how many takes we did of this or anything. I can't imagine it was many, but I do know because I kept changing my voice back and forth. By the time we were done with it, I don't think I could talk. Like I had just and I'm also like singing really loud from the other side of the room. Completely blew my voice out. The results that we got were way away from perfect, but it accomplished exactly what like Nolin was talking about, is like this barroom sort of energy.
Yeah.
And not only that, but it was fun as hell. Like it's as much fun as we had recording anything in here ever, I think. Like,
yeah, we were laughing after every take. Like, couldn't stop laughing.
Just cracking ourselves up while we were doing it. All right. So I've isolated out the three of us singing together right here. I'll play it for everybody.
DNA! Nucleotides along for the ride with the molecular fate. Nature and nurture, one and the same.
So it's kind of funny. I had recorded decent harmony vocals on this song before, right?
Yeah.
Like I had done this several times. The harmony sounded fine. One of my favorite parts when I was doing like the clean harmony vocals was towards the end over that line that I think is like the crux of the song. There ain't much difference between them and me. Like that line. And I had sang a harmony over that. And it sounded really good. And when I did it with you guys, I totally failed. Like it was awful. So let's play that. Let's let the people hear.
There ain't much difference between them and me.
It's so bad. Like my voice is like out of pitch and it's cracking and I'm running out of breath and like it's all over the place. So I tried to re-record it, right? Several times. But because of the way we recorded it with all of us singing together and way away from the mics and all of this kind of stuff, it never worked. Like it never set, like you could tell that it was a different recording than the rest of the backing vocals. And so I ended up scrapping it. And honestly, I'm glad I did because there's an unhinged element to the backing vocals here. And to me, that's just part of it. And when I hear that on the final recordings, like in my head, I know how out of pitch it is. Like I know how bad I'm screwing it up. But at the same time, like it adds a tension there and sort of a wildness that I think is really fun. The backing vocals here are also the only vocals on the record that I did not redo with the dynamic microphone. Because once again, it was just like, there's no way we're going to redo this and get the same thing out of it. So I kept it all. So these are the only vocals that are recorded in stereo with the condensers. As cool as it sounded with the three of us singing backing vocals together, it felt like it needed more people to get the full barroom sound. And so fortunately for us, we have extra singing voices that are just hanging out inside the house. And they're people that really know how to sing just for the pure joy and fun of it, right? With like no sort of like hang-ups or worries about anything at all. And if you tell them, get loud and get wild with it, they're going to be happier than anybody you've ever seen. That is our very own backing singers, the Sprouts. So let's welcome to the podcast, Emmylou Reed. How are you, Emmylou?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great. And Towns McCoy, how are you?
Oh, I'm great.
I'm so glad that y'all are joining me here. Are you excited? Is this your first time ever on a podcast?
No.
I think so.
When were you on a podcast, Towns?
Remember that time when we went on the wait, no, that wasn't a podcast. And no.
No.
I've done podcasts for school.
You have? That's exactly right. You did take a class in school where
Oh,
you
and
did a
I
podcast.
helped her, so
Yes,
and I helped her, so that counts.
And Towns, when we do videos on vacation, you do like your little narrations, right? Like you talk.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
yeah, me
sometimes
too.
sometimes I do my harmonica.
Yeah, that's also true. But what we're here to talk about today is the song The Modern Prometheus. And the reason that you're here, and because you're my special guest, is because y'all were special guests on the album. That's pretty cool, huh?
Yes.
Yes.
Yay.
It's the coolest.
I thought it was really cool. So this has been, let's see, this was back March 20th of 2024. So it was over a year ago when y'all recorded this. Do y'all remember doing it?
Yeah,
Yes.
I don't remember it being
Yeah.
a year ago. That's insane.
No.
Feels like it was just like a couple months ago.
It does.
No. Right.
So, Towns, what do you remember about coming in here to record? Is there anything that kind of stands out or was special to you?
Well, I remember singing that song.
You do?
Yeah.
And what do you remember about singing it? Was it fun? Like, did you have a good time?
Oh,
Was there
yes.
was
I
it
had
scary?
a great time.
Were you nervous?
Oh, no, not at all.
No, not nervous. What about you, Emmylou? Anything you remember about it?
I thought that it was really fun that we just got to come out here and like scream at the top of our lungs. That was really fun.
Yes.
I really enjoyed that.
I think we're all always ready to scream at the top of our lungs, right?
Yeah,
Agreed.
good point.
So we talked about like being on podcasts, but had y'all ever recorded any kind of music or anything before?
Oh, yeah, that
With
time.
you?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably
Yes.
with me.
What we just talked about.
Oh, well, that is right. In towns, you do the harmonica and stuff.
Yeah.
And we did that other song with you.
What other song?
Pegasus.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So y'all will probably be invited back if you do a good job in the interview this time. Maybe you'll get to come back in and do another interview later on.
Yay.
I was thinking about something specific, though. So y'all are musicians.
Big
and
Racket.
The Big Racket Band. So Emmylou and I started a band, and then when Towns came along, he was automatically joined up. And in our band, Big Racket, we also have a couple of original songs. We have the Big Racket song, but we all wrote a song together. Do you remember?
No. Is that bad?
Neither one of you remembers the song that we wrote?
No?
Shell Spider.
Shell Spider, that's
Oh,
right. Spider with the
yes.
shell. Shell
Yes.
Spider.
Spider with a shell. Shell spider. Spider with a shell.
Yeah, so that's a classic Big Racket original. So we brought Big Racket in and combined it with Fall Down Trees to do the Modern Prometheus recording.
The ultimate collab.
So a thing that was kind of cool, and we talked about this with Porkchop and Nolin just a minute ago, but we recorded this a little differently. So we had microphones set up right in front of my desk, and then we had y'all stand about 4 feet away. Now, I think when it came down to it, the two of you are actually louder than Porkchop and Nolin, even though y'all aren't nearly as big. You made a bigger racket than they did, so y'all might have been about 5 feet away.
Because we make a lot of racket all the time.
That's right. And you were standing right beside each other. But there is one difference between the two of you that made it kind of hard, is one of you short. Which one?
Towns.
Me.
That's right. Towns is short. Towns, how old are you?
7.5.
7.5. And Emmylou, how old are you?
I'm 11.
11.
No, I'm 11 3/4.
Oh, yeah, you're almost there. Yeah, you
I'm
got a
almost
birthday
there.
coming up.
I do.
So we put Towns up on the ottoman. It's the same ottoman that we tried to play drums on when Porkchop and Nolin and I all three played drums together. That track got scrapped. So Towns stood on the ottoman, so he was a little closer to Emmylou's height, and the two of you stood side by side, and you sort of, did the background, like the yelling thing. I do remember when I was explaining to you what you were supposed to do, both of you figured it out pretty quickly, especially the spot where I told you that you needed to just scream. But even the other parts of the song, once you heard Nolin and Porkchop do it, and I was like, here's where you sing, then both of you just did it immediately. It wasn't like it took a lot of practice. Was there anything about it that y'all thought was hard or difficult?
No, I mean, really, I guess, like, the screaming the words part was a lot harder than screaming just
screaming?
genuinely, just,
Yes,
like, screaming.
yeah.
But it was all
Like-
pretty easy. I mean, it didn't take much
the
practice.
end was really fun.
Right.
Yes.
The big scream. That was so
Yeah.
fun.
I do remember that saying molecular fate was pretty difficult
Oh,
for
yeah,
everybody.
yeah.
Can you
Molecular
say
fate is kind of hard to say.
molecular fate? Can you say
Molecular
molecular
fate.
fate now, Towns?
Molecular fate.
That was beautiful. Well done.
Molecular fate.
You did a good job, Towns.
Thanks.
Another thing that I remember, and y'all might not remember about this, but it was your first time hearing the saxophone solo in the song. So that was really kind of the first time y'all had heard the song all the way through, when you had your headphones on and you were standing in front of the microphone. And what I did was I just played the song all the way through, and y'all stood there and listened and waited for your turns to sing. So I didn't just play the spots where you were singing. I played the whole song. And I remember y'all being pretty excited when that saxophone solo started playing. Mm-hmm. Do you know what you did?
What?
Both of you played air sax the entire solo. I got some pretty great pictures of it. Towns standing on the ottoman, and both of you doing air saxophone and dancing around the whole time the solo was going on. So I told Nolin as soon as that was over with, after we recorded, I was like, "Hey man, I think it's not just us that thinks that saxophone solo is good. I think it's going to be everybody, because Emmylou and Towns were very into it." All right, so while I got you here, let's listen to what you did a year ago. Now, obviously, you've heard the album, right? Have y'all listened to the album?
Yeah.
Y'all were really, other than Porkchop and Nolin, the only people that heard this the whole time I was making it. So we would go ride around and stuff, and I would play y'all versions that we were working on and things that we were working on, like in the car. And so y'all actually got to hear kind of the process of making it too, and all the different ways that it sounded. And then we did, if you remember, we went and rode around after it came out, and went and rode around for the first time and listened to it all the way through in the in YB the Wombat, or Subaru. So y'all did hear it kind of from cover to cover. I think you might have taken naps though, so I don't know.
We probably did.
All right, well, you've heard it. You've heard yourselves like singing with the music, but what I'm going to do here is I'm going to play your voices, but with no music behind it. So it's just going to be your voices, all right? So here we go.
DNA! Molecular fate!
I had to get the scream in there for you too, so you could hear yourself screaming. It's really cool. Like, your voices sound really good together, and that's pretty common. Like, for brothers and sisters, it's called blood harmony, where kind of people that grew up together, people that are related to each other, because your voices are kind of similar, but also because you spend so much time talking to each other, and you know, like, how you phrase words and stuff. It makes singing together easier for you, and it also makes it sound better together. And even though y'all are just kind of yelling right there, like, I can still hear that and how good your voices sound together. But the thing that seems to come the most natural is screaming together. Do y'all have any practice or experience screaming together?
Oh, 100%.
No.
Yes, we do. We have so much practicing
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, y'all do a good bit of screaming. All right, well, that was really cool. It was a really cool experience for me to get to sit here and record with you, and it's cool that we got to do it again. We did it a little different when we did it for Pegasus later on, where y'all weren't together. Y'all actually sang those parts separately. So
And Pegasus was a lot calmer.
it's definitely a lot calmer. It was a whole different thing. But for this, it was such a cool experience for me to be in here and just to watch you guys have fun making music. Like, it's a thing that I have so much fun doing, and I love it so much, and to be able to share that with y'all is really special. And just to see y'all just play an air saxophone and dancing around and getting into the music that we've been working so hard to record, it was all really cool. And it makes this one of my favorite songs. It makes me smile every time I hear it, because I hear y'all come in there, and hearing y'all and Porkchop and Nolin together and just having fun making music. So cool. So I really, really appreciate y'all doing that for me, and being a part of the album. That's neat. You know, our first album is Fall Down Trees, and, you know, this album is a really personal album for me too. So to have y'all on there is really special. And I also really appreciate y'all joining me on the podcast.
I enjoyed coming.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, I enjoyed coming too.
Thank
All
you
right.
for having us.
Absolutely. Well, we'll get you guys back in soon. All right. Emmylou Reed and Towns McCoy, thank y'all so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, of course. Can we do one last big screen?
Go for it. Oh my God. Oh my God.
So fun.
I mean, you can definitely hear the blood harmony thing. Y'all were locked perfectly together, but you sounded like police sirens or something. All right, get out of here. That's enough. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Love you.
Bye.
Love you.
Bye.
So, once we combined the two tracks, we found exactly what we were looking for. Once we took Emmylou and Towns and their vocals and mixed those with the three of us, like, we got that full barroom sound and all of that energy. And not only that, but just like the difference in the tones of our voice too,
Yeah.
right? Like, in Emmylou, Towns at the highest, and Emmylou right below him, and then the three of us like down below that. Like, it adds a breadth.
Yeah, we just needed more people, and they're little people, but they're people.
That's right, and they're plenty loud.
Yeah.
Look, when Emmylou took voice lessons, it always cracked me up, because they would have a sound guy, and she was the littlest one there by like 3 years, and they would put a chair up so she could stand up and actually reach the microphone. And you would see the sound guy over there like bumping the mic up, and then she would start singing just like her dad, like full speed ahead, belting it out, and they would go running to like turn the volume back down. She would sing next to 17-year-olds and just blow them out of the water when she was 5. No difference here, and Towns is just as loud as his dad is too. Like, they had no problems keeping up with the volume and getting wild with it. The other thing is, like, this is like, it's a special thing for me, right? Like, it's so cool to hear my kids and my best friends and my bandmates just like cutting loose and getting wild and like having fun just making music. Like, to me, that is what all of this is really comes down to, and it's all about. Yeah. And one of the things like Sunday sing-alongs it's like my musical mission in life is like, you don't have to be pretty, you don't have to be fit, you don't have to be young, you don't have to be uber talented. As a matter of fact, it's better if you're not completely clean. It's better if you leave your character in there, you leave those mistakes in there. Like, that's what making music is really about, and it's that authentic stuff that is the best music that you'll ever hear. And I think, like, the music industry and TikTok and Instagram and all of this has really pushed us away from that so much in a way that's sad to me, because TikTok and Instagram could give us the ability to shine light on very unique musicians and instrumentalists and get them out into the world in a way they never could before. And instead, we're just overrun with saccharine bullshit all the time that you can't filter through it to get to the good stuff. And everybody's so afraid of showing their flaws that they hide it all with every song you hear on TikTok has got just drenched in reverb. And I think that's the opposite of the direction we should be going and what we should be doing. And to me, like, this experience of all of us like singing together and hearing that back, like, that is the core of what making music should be about. It's what I love the most about it. And it's so fun for me to hear this song in particular, just because it's all of these people that just like I have such a close bond with that are experiencing that and just really, really enjoying making music.
That also, and you're talking about, turning points in the recording and the album. This is probably one of those turning points where like we don't have to take ourselves so seriously. Like, this album doesn't have to be the most serious thing. I know, some of the lyrics you guys come up with are very profound.
And this is a dark record, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's a heavy thing.
But at the same time, you know how many people we could make jealous. It's like, these guys sound like they're having fun, and that's what I wanted to portray. It's like, look, we're probably not the best, but we're having damn fun making this record, and I want it to sound like we're having fun.
And it is how we play live.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know anybody that listens to this album and has never seen us live. Like, this is a pretty different vibe. And it's not just because we're doing all the overdubs and being creative in the studio, but it's the music that we're playing. Like, we play about half covers and half originals. We lean a lot more like in a country direction when we're live.
Yeah.
But we're also, goofy.
Yeah.
Like, we screw stuff up and then make fun of each other on the stage when we do it. I never will forget when Jonah got up at the end of Canned Biscuits before the last verse of the song, and it was the last song before the set break, and he thought the song was over and got up and walked off the stage. I think it was the first gig he ever played in his life. And
undercooked biscuits.
We gave him so much shit on the microphone in front of the crowd, like just ribbed him to death about it, He was loose for the rest of the gig, though, because once you do that, like, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
There's the Dustin Tried moment where I screwed up the intro to Mama Tried about 3 different times, and we finally just gave up and played the song.
And Porkchop said Dustin Tried.
That's right. Like, when we take that approach when we play live, like, we think that's part of the charm, and this is the moment on the record where we got to show that off. And I do think it adds, like, a levity to the album that the album desperately needed to keep it from being so dark, throughout. And there are other moments, like, Pegasus is a lighthearted moment too. And look, it features our backing singers also. Like, I think the kids bring a lot to that. But this is definitely one of those things that sort of added that balance. And just really appreciate like what it adds to an otherwise like heavy and somber record.
Yeah.
All right, so let's play all of the vocals together in isolation, and maybe everybody can get a good feel of what it is that we're talking about. The maker appraised with a critical gaze and a Promethean eye. He's a mess, but by God, he's alive! A patchwork of the best of all that came before. Giving life, yet still demanding more. He's just DNA. Nucleotides along for the ride with a molecular fate. Nature and nurture, one and the same. Porkchop coming in at the end. Ah, ha, ha.
That's my favorite part of all the vocals on that song is getting to scream.
Yeah.
It's so amazing to me that, like, I talk about, like, favorite moments on the record, right?
Yeah.
Like, there are these little moments that stand out. Nolan's sax solo is it. And there's one part of the sax solo that, like, I can, like, when it's coming up, like, I get excited. And when he hits it, it just makes me, like, squirm, like, you know, I pucker my butthole up a little bit.
And
you know,
the words of Little Richard, it makes your big toe shoot up in your boot.
Yeah, there we go. Like that moment, and then following that solo to hear everybody like scream to lead back into the rest of the song. I'm amazed that I got as close to being in pitch with my harmony vocals as I did. It wasn't perfect throughout, but it was pretty good moments in there. And then we get the full scream, the full "He's Alive" scream in there too. It's so good. I really enjoy like every bit of that. You can also hear there, because the vocals are isolated, you can hear I didn't actually use reverb on my lead vocals on this one. I used like a 50 slapback, so it's actually a slapback delay that's in the vocals, which is a little different, but works great for this song. We've already run really long on this episode, so considering that, let's play the whole thing for everybody. This is the final master of the Modern Prometheus.
Stood outside the walls and addressed the guard. Are we menagerie for the stars? Born to bear the burden of a beating heart. Our destiny determined from the start. Are we just DNA? Nucleotides along for the ride with molecular fate. Nature and nurture, one and the same. The maker appraised with a critical gaze and a Promethean eye. He's a mess, but by God, he's alive. A patchwork of the best of all that came before. Living life, yet still demanding more. He's just DNA. Nucleotides along for the ride with a molecular fate. Nature and nurture, one and the same.
was the Modern Prometheus from Night Terrors, the debut album by Fall Down Trees. That solo, Nolin, man. Like, whatever that turkey gobbling thing it is that you do, like when the song gets funky.
It's called a Texas wobble. I don't know if it's still called that. That's what I call it.
Texas wobble?
It's where you hold down the A and then you play every single other key and it makes a wobbling sound. I use it for just about every solo on
I'm
the...
gonna take you turkey hunting with me. Is what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
Man, that's freaking wild. And I don't think, like, going through all this, we gave you enough credit for the rest of the sax that's on the song. Because not only is the sax solo incredibly good, but, like, your sax playing in every moment of the song, like, the riff is the part that stands out, right?
Yeah.
And, like, it adds so much, like, boost to the riff of the song and so much, like, funkiness. But what you're doing under my vocals, like, during the verse, you're, like, creating, like, a texture under my vocals and then coming back into sort of, like, we've talked about this before, like, filling in the gaps, right? And so you're, like, creating a texture right underneath me where you're not stepping on my toes, and you almost, unless you're listening for it, almost can't tell that you're even there.
Yeah.
But then as soon as the vocal's in, like, you slide back up in there and throw a little tasty lick before you go back down. And there were lots of cuts, obviously, that we did during that part because it would be pretty close to impossible for you to play at that level all the way through. But, like, you would have to do a verse all the way through at one time. So there are huge chunks of that where you are completely, like, in that moment. It's not like we're editing bits and pieces in and out of that.
Yeah.
I think the sax playing, like, all the way throughout is pretty fantastic.
It was a lot of fun.
Also, you know, I was talking about Pink Floyd and, like, that. I didn't really make this connection. But the solo is very Pink Floyd-ish. Like that vibe when it all slows down, like it reaches sort of a prog rock sort of feel. And I really love the very beginning of the bridge because none of us are playing together. No. Like everything, like you're playing, Nolin, you're playing your like lead, and then I'm playing like that strum with the whammy bar that's kind of filling up the space. And then Porkchop is sort of stabbing the bass in there, right? And these little walks and these little things that are almost working counter to what it is that I'm doing.
Yeah, it definitely came together like a lot better than, because I remember, you know, like you said earlier, it was kind of like a headache because we didn't get it to sound like we wanted it to sound like it used to sound. Then when, you know, we all came together, it came together.
Absolutely.
I would say it was pieced together kind of like the creature in the book.
Oh yeah.
Hey, that's pretty
That's
smart
a good
there,
analogy
Chop.
right
There's your English 101 skills coming through again.
BS coming through.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like we really did. Like that was how the thing came to be. It wasn't the most intense editing work that I did, but it was probably second. And we'll talk about the other one a little bit down the road. But yeah, when you listen to that song, it sounds like a piece. It doesn't it doesn't stand out that it was edited together or pieced together in that way. I think that's the single, right? Like I think we need to make a music video or something for that one.
That'd be fun.
Well, thanks, folks, for listening to Does It Make a Sound? We'll be back in a couple of weeks with Episode 5, Water Finds Its Way, where we get into the weeds about miking a 2x4 and how much water do you put in a double-walled stainless steel dog bowl to produce a D? Very important things. In the meantime, please like, subscribe, and review the show on your favorite podcasting platform. Stay up to date with Does It Make a Sound and Fall Down Trees by following Fall Down Trees on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. We don't use any masking on TikTok. You'll hear the real original recordings with all the warts and flaws you could ever want. Links are in the description of this podcast, and as independent artists, we need champions to spread the word about our work. So if you find value in our music or this podcast, please share it with your friends on your social channels. That's more valuable to us than any advertising we could ever afford, and it makes us feel kind of special too. Does It Make a Sound and Fall Down Trees are proud partners with Guttersville Records, a collective of independent artists working together to be heard in this noisy digital space. So please like and subscribe to Guttersville channels too, and make sure to listen to all of the music coming out from our little indie label. Thanks for listening to the show and for all of your undying support. I hope it's undying. All right, so for Porkchop Branch and Nolin McAlister, as well as Emmylou and Towns, I'm Dustin Owens.
Timber!